Hello everyone and welcome to the ChatFlow Uber Oauth2 tutorial. In this tutorial, we will use the Oauth2 request node to make an HTTP request requiring Oauth2 app authentication with user authorization. Oauth2 authorization is helpful when your bot needs to take actions on behalf of the user. This tutorial assumes that you know how to create applications, you know how to add nodes, and you have an Uber account. By the end of this tutorial, you will be able to configure Oauth2 nodes, test the Oauth2 authorization, and reuse access tokens throughout your bot. Let's begin. First, go to the Uber developer's dashboard. Press the New App button. Select Rides API, enter your app name, description, read the terms, and if you agree with them, fill out the corresponding checkbox, and click Create. So now that we've initiated the process on the Uber developer's dashboard, create a new application in ChatFlow. Add a chat in, chat out, and router node. Connect them like so. Next, drag in an enter node. Name it Start. Remove the existing conditions and click the Initial State option. Add a blank state node and connect it to the enter node. Next, add a second enter node. Name it Get Profile. Let it check the payload for Profile. Add in a function node. Name it Clear Payload and enter the following code into the function. This code will empty our payload. Now comes the fun part. Let's set up the Oauth2 request node. Double-click the node to open the editor. Name the Oauth2 Uber Profile. Enter Profile History Places in the Scope field. Set method to Get. Enter https://api.uber.com/v1/me in the URL field. Upon user authorization, the URL field will immediately make a request to the Uber API and fetch your profile information. You can optionally leave this field blank. Then, upon user authorization, the Oauth2 node will just obtain credentials specified in the next step. Credentials are stored by assigning them to different scopes. If you have many Oauth2 request nodes in the same app, or even in many apps, if they share Oauth2 credentials, you might want to use the biggest common set of scopes. If you do so, users will only have to authorize your app once to give it access to every piece of data you need. Click on the pencil icon in the configuration line to add a new configuration. Go to the Uber developer's dashboard. Open your application details, copy client ID and client secret to the Oauth2 configuration. Don't try to copy these values from this tutorial. The data shown here is fake. Enter https://login.uber.com in the authorization host field. Enter \oauth2\v2\authorize in the authorization endpoint field. Enter OAuth\v2\token in the token exchange endpoint field. Change the where credentials are kept value to kit.oauth2. Click on the gray redirect URL field to copy its value to your clipboard. The Oauth2 request node tries to reuse credentials it's obtained in the past, so users aren't bothered with clicking on links on each request. The acquired credentials are kept in a specific property of the message. By using the value kit_oauth2, we can keep these credentials in the dialog storage. You can use data saved in this property to keep credentials in some more persistent storage. You can save settings in both dialog windows now. Go to Application in the Uber Development dashboard. Switch to Authorizations and paste the address you copied from the redirect field. You also have to enter any valid address in the Privacy Policy URL. Enable Profile, Places, and History in the General Scope section. Don't forget to save these settings. Back in ChatFlow, edit the second state node, name it Authorize App, and enter the following code into the body of the function. The first output of the Oauth2 node is used to ask users for authorization to access to their data. If the Oauth2 node can use credentials that it has acquired previously, this node can proceed without asking the user to accept access again, and the message won't be emitted so long as the credentials are still valid. Only when the user authorizes access, the Oauth2 request node will proceed. Edit the third state node. Name it Greet and enter the following code into the body of the function. This code will be responsible for greeting your user. The second output of the Oauth2 request node is used to pass data received from the server. It is most similar to the output of the HTTP request node. Edit the third enter node. Name it End Conversation. let it check the payload for bye. Edit the for state node and name it end. Set the output text to goodbye, and enable the dialog ends here option. Now you can test your application. Deploy your app, and open the chat panel. Send a profile message. Then the application should ask you to authorize its access to your data. After that, the application should greet you with your first node. If you send profile again, the application will make the request again, but because it has already obtained valid credentials, it can do so without asking you to authorize. When you send the bye message, the dialog will end and those credentials are erased. Great, so what's next? Well, let's assume that the credentials are kept in some persistent storage, and we use two requests to access different resources. For simplicity of this tutorial, we won't use any real storage yet. Open the configuration editor in the Oauth2 request node. Change the field name, where credentials are kept, to Uber Oauth2. Leave the rest of the fields unchanged. If you deploy the test application now, you will see that the user is asked to authorize every time we want to write to their profile. Now, add two function nodes. Connect one between the chat in and the router, and another between the router and the chat out node. So look a little something like this. If you drop a node from the palette on an existing connection, it will split the connection and the new node will automatically be connected. Edit the function node before the router. Name it restore credentials and enter the following code into the body of the function. We are using the global application storage as a mock database. Because you are the only possible user for this application, you don't have to know which credentials belong to which user. In a real-world scenario, you would have to store credentials in some collective table where the user identifier is a primary key. Edit the function node placed after the router. Name it save credentials and enter the following code into the body of the function. Now the application will ask for credentials only once. But let's not stop there. Let's add a second command that will access another Uber resource. Add an enter node. Name it getHistory. Let it check for the payload history. Add a new function node. Copy the contents of the existing clear payload function node into the new function node. After this step, there are two clear payload function nodes. Add an Oauth2 request node. Edit the second Oauth2 node like you did before. Name it Uber History. Use the existing configuration called Uber. Enter profile history places in the scopes field. Set the method to get and enter the following into the URL field. Don't forget to link the first output of the new Oauth2 request node to the existing state node called authorize app. Add a state node, name it print places, and enter the following code into the body of the function. And with that, click deploy and your application is ready to go. Go ahead and test your application again. Thanks for watching.